Round 10 proved to be another dramatic day at the candidates here in London. And I've chosen as my player of the day Magnus Carlsen against Boris Gelfand. Now, in the first half of the tournament, Carlson defeated Gelfand with the black pieces. Today he had white, and of course he was looking to try to go for a win so that he could increase his lead in the tournament. He's half a point clear of Aronian. So we join the game after 18 moves. Carlson, as I said, with white, and typically played a very unpretentious opening. He's got all his pieces in play, everything kind of looks fairly normal, but Gelfand's position also looks quite solid. He's connected his rooks. The bishop is on an excellent square on c6, looking on this long diagonal. And white's queen is quite active here, but black's pieces are solid enough. And it's at this moment when Carlson went in for quite a big think. And I'm not surprised, because basically, if black can, for example, trade rooks here, I don't think he has any difficulties at all. He also has positional threats just to sort of clamp down with a4 as well, and that to some extent cripples white's queenside pawn majority. So, big think from Carlson here, and he came up with a remarkable idea. Well, first of all, he took on d8. Now, rook takes is impossible. That's the move we'd like to play to keep a rook on the open file, but then bishop c7 wins material. Incidentally, I should say that bishop c7 doesn't work in this position because of rook takes, and here black has two rooks for the queen and should be absolutely fine. So rook takes d8, and now queen takes d8 because rook takes doesn't work. Rook d1, okay, this all looks normal. Coming back to the open file, and now queen b6. So the rook is on an open file, but there's not a lot you can do about it with the bishops covering these squares, and the queen has returned to this strong post on b6. Okay, bishop d4 from Carlson. Well, if queen takes b2, then there's a nice discovered attack on the queen, and the knight threatens the bishop. So the queen went to b3. Now, I was looking at this and thinking, well, this looks absolutely fine for black, because the queen really sort of hassles these pawns, doesn't look to be in any danger at all. But Carlson played rook d3, which also looks slightly odd. Now, if queen takes c4, that's impossible. There's a nice tactic. We take on f6, and there's a nice discovered attack here. When the rook is taken, then we have bishop takes c4. And, well, there are no back rank tricks here for black. Let's just take a look at that. And in this position, you can simply recapture here, because this one, black doesn't have time for bishop b5 because there's queen b8 check. This theme of the weak back rank runs through the entire game. So we'll see plenty of other tactics along those lines. So queen c2 played. Well, again, this looked absolutely fine for Gelfand. The queen comes into white's position, and the rook even looks slightly uncomfortable, sort of treading on the toes of the bishop. But now we saw Carlson's idea. Now, this is remarkably brave, and to play a move like this, you need to calculate in enormous detail beforehand, because after the exchange, it looks as though black has been given fantastic counterplay down here on the a file, again exploiting the weakness of the weak back rank. But if rook a1, then it's white that strikes first, and then queen b8 is soon mate. And what happens on bishop takes b4? Well, then white plays bishop takes f6 and has one apiece. Now, black's problem here is that white threatens to play b5, pushing the bishop back from this excellent position on the long diagonal. And once the bishop goes back, then white does start to take control. So Gelfand had to react quite quickly and played knight h5. This is a very tricky move indeed. Queen e5 from Carlson. There's no threat to take on g7. Obviously, the knight defends. And now the queen attacks the knight. Now, another fascinating variation that, again, Carlson would have had to calculate way in advance before he played rook takes d8, before he played b4. White gets the advantage with this incredible move, knight d1. There was, I should say, there was a threat to take the rook on d3 because of the pin there. So the bishop threatens the rook, the queen threatens the knight. So black has to take. And now there's a check on b8. Black has to interpose with the bishop, and now bishop c5. So white wins the bishop back. But here you have to be incredibly careful. If white takes on f7, then bishop e4, again, is the weakness of the back rank, followed by bishop d3, and actually wins for black. But white has this remarkable move, queen d6. The queen, after the queen exchange, then white just has a tremendous endgame. In this case, the queenside pawn majority is terribly strong with the two bishops. And basically after queen d6, white is okay, but what a variation to calculate. So after queen e5, I mean, there's far more detail to that, but that's the gist of it. Okay, so Gelfand played bishop f6. And again, a remarkable piece of calculation from Carlson. These moves are all forced. Black gets the piece back. And now, again, you have to watch out for rook a1, but queen a5 had been anticipated by Carlson. After rook takes, of course, there's mate on the back rank again. So the rook has to hide. Now queen b6. So after that great flurry of forcing moves, the position has settled, and it's clear that Carlson is beginning to take control. The queenside pawn majority is potent. Also, white controls the open file. So black is really struggling here, and I think this is terribly difficult to defend. Maybe Gelfand should have tried h6 here instead of g6. And of course, you have to solve your back rank problem, give the king a square. But here, there we go, the pawns are advancing. Carlson played queen f6, an excellent move, and now slightly uncomfortable for the king, but also the pawn on e5 is terribly weak. And from this moment on, Carlson is in control. If, for example, rook e8, then defending the pawn on c5, and white just rolls on. So Gelfand gave up this pawn, hoping for counterplay. Let's just see what happens. So white is a clear pawn up now, but black has activity. But Carlson defended very well. Let's have a look. Rook a1. This actually loses queen e5. Again, it's to do with the weak back rank. There's going to be mate here, and if queen takes, in fact, black doesn't have perpetual check here, or any kind of attack. Basically, black runs out of checks, and then there's mate here. So king h7 from Gelfand, but now Carlson is able to defend his back rank, and he has control again. So a pawn up, strong pawns on the queen side, and here they go. There was one final surprise. It just looked like Carlson, pawn up, was winning very easily. But here, I mean, we were expecting just c6 and just pushing the pawns, but Carlson took on b7, and we thought, well, queen c5, yeah, still winning easily for white. But Gelfand played queen e1. Now, I just have a feeling this might have come as a bit of a surprise to Carlson. White has two extra pawns, but it's very difficult to stop this move. I mean, you know, you don't want to defend passively here. For example, here, queen g2, you take here, and actually that's probably going to be a draw. But Carlson didn't panic, and he found a way to win with his two connected pass pawns. The pawns just rolled on, and in fact he just gave up the bishop, and black can't stop these pawns. The game ended like this. Basically, yeah, after c6 you can't prevent the queen coming to g3, controlling the b8 square, and in this position Gelfand resigned. I think that was Carlson's best game of the tournament so far. I think it was remarkable that he managed to extract an advantage out of the position we started with. Brilliant technique. So there we go. Carlson still leads on 7 out of 10. Aronian also won today. He defeated Ivanchuk, who lost on time for the 4th time in the tournament. And Kramnik also won by defeating Grushuk. So Kramnik has 6 out of 10. Those 3 have now quite a gap. They've broken away from the rest of the pack. So looks like it's just going to be down to 3 players who might win this tournament. 4 rounds to go. It's very close.